Hello again everyone, this is Ben from Revolution Trains and I'm with Mike from Revolution Trains, and we are here for the second of our little video presentations for the Engage Forum virtual exhibition. And in this one we're going to talk about exactly how we go about developing and producing a model, from the very first genesis of the idea right to us packing them up and sending them out to you, our supporters and customers. And so hopefully you'll find that at least vaguely interesting. And as ever, we are very active on the Engage forum, so you can look at all the threads on our various models, and if there's anything that you're particularly interested in or any questions you want to ask, if you ask us on there, or you can interact with us on Facebook or elsewhere, and we will usually try to get you an answer as best we can. So well, let's talk about exactly how we go about deciding what models to produce. I mean, Mike, what we usually do is just kind of throw a few ideas around, really.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, model selection is the starting point for any of our projects. We tend to have a sort of long list of potential ideas that we've developed over the last 5-6 years that we keep adding to as new ideas occur to us. And then we try and sort of filter down. Obviously we try and have a bit of diversity in terms of, is it a power model, the era that it's from. We're not just trying to produce the most up-to-date modern models. We're also trying to offer things for all modelers. But obviously one part of model selection is the sort of commercial practicality. So one important part of the selection of any model is that, as we mentioned in the first video, the balance between it not being so overtly commercial that perhaps Farish or Dapple might be producing it, but it's still going to produce, or we can still sell enough to make it possible to produce it.
I mean, the practical reality as well is that, as Mike said, we also look at eras, because it's pointless us only doing models that will sell to people who are modelling the last 10 years, or indeed a certain particular era, though we have noticed that there is a clear appetite among those modelling more modern prototypes to support pre-order crowdfunding type schemes like the ones we run, and that's just how it is. I mean, we get lots of people saying to us, why don't you do more transition era models? And we have done some transition era models, but they did eventually sell, but the uptake was much slower, and that obviously the speed of uptake very much governs the speed that we can progress any given project. And what we're going to do now is take you through the various stages to give you a sense of exactly how that works.
Yeah, so I mean, once we've selected what model we want to produce, the first thing that we do is prepare what we call a quote file, which is a basic bit of research about all the variations that you might want to produce off a set of tooling. And the idea is that we're giving enough information to the various factories that we use in China for them to be able to give us a quote to both create the tooling and then also a unit cost per model. So the idea is that we'll prepare that information. It'll contain basic photos, liveries that we might want to do, probably basic drawings of the prototype. And the idea is it gives the factory enough information to give us some sort of outline figures. That then allows us to decide, is this going to be economically feasible? It may be that the price of the model would just be so high that we could never produce it at a price that we think the market would bear. But most of the time we get something sensible back that says, right, okay, this is roughly what it's going to cost. And we say, yes, this is a good idea, and we can start work on it. So at that point we start the research process, don't we, Ben?
Yeah, that's right. So I mean, research takes various forms, and one of the first things we do increasingly for modern models is we have to think about getting a license. There's a lot of grey area around this, and a lot of it hasn't even been tested in court. Theoretically, you can produce a 3D facsimile of anything that's out there in the same way that a photographer can take a photograph, or a sculptor can produce a sculpture of something. The difficulty is not so much the shape and the size, it's more about, if you get a license, first of all, then you're able to reproduce any of the intellectual property the company might have, like their own logos, which of course is a vital part, certainly of most modern trains. And secondly, if you can get them on board, then invariably they will be able to provide you with decent drawings, access to depots to go and take measurements and photographs, sometimes in fact actual their own 3D scans that they may have done for their own engineering requirements, or CAD that was produced by the manufacturers of the real thing when they built them in the first place. So the licensing is actually really important. It's a big part of the early development of the models, and from there you generate a research package which has any drawings or information you've got. We always try and go to depots to measure these things, and we've been to a variety of places across the country. Often we go to, for example, Arlington Depot near Southampton at Eastleigh, because they maintain a lot of freight wagons there, which of course are one of the core items in our range. But we've been to lots of other places too. And then once you've got lots of measurements, lots of photographs, lots of drawings, all of that then goes to the factory for them to start preparing the actual CAD. And by that time, once the CAD comes back, I think you start to get a real sense of what the model is going to look like.
Yeah, I think there's one important distinction between some of the more modern models that we do and perhaps some of the older models here, which is, as Ben says, modern wagons and modern prototypes, whether they're locos or multiple units. It's quite often that we'll either get very, very good 2D or even 3D drawings from either the manufacturer direct of the prototype, or the owner or operator of the stock. The further back you go, obviously the information that's available becomes more and more difficult to find. And so that can be why say a 1950s built wagon or multiple unit can actually take a lot longer in terms of research and design than something built in the last 10-15 years.
That's absolutely right. So once the CAD comes in, we assess it, look at it, we ask for any changes. You usually go through 2, 3, sometimes 4 or 5 different iterations of CAD to get up to the point at which you are happy to sign off. Then you start the tooling. The moulds are actually cut from steel to produce the plastic parts. And what we then receive, once that's all done, is what we call an EP sample. That's an engineering prototype sample. And the intention of that is to show you that all the parts fit together as they should, that everything looks like it should, and that also the thing will run. You know, it comes with wheels all fitted. We run it, we test run it to make sure that the couplers don't foul, or for whatever reason the bogies can rotate as much as they need to. If for example you've got a close coupling on this model, it is going to work on curves of down to at least 12-inch radius, which is the minimum that we guarantee, although most of our models will actually go around lower radii than that. And we look at sort of, I don't know, testing this, making sure it looks right. We'll show it to people, we'll put photographs on our website so that those who've already ordered will be able to see how progress is going. And once that's signed off, it's just a question of getting decorated samples.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to point out, and one of the reasons that modern railways are comparatively expensive is the process of tooling is one of the major costs. Cutting bits of steel accurately to produce highly precision engineered steel moulds is a very expensive business, but the end result of it is what you see here in these engineering prototypes that Ben was talking about. As Ben said, from that point onwards, hopefully by that point we've already got permission, and maybe even livery diagrams of the real thing from the owners, and we then have to convert that into something suitable for Engage, and obviously there may be certain decorated features that you just can't accurately reproduce at a small scale, so you have to work out where a sort of an acceptable level of detail is, and then from that point onwards it's a case of getting the factory to produce livery samples, and we've got some examples of livery samples from our ongoing JNA Ealnos wagon.
Yeah, so what we've been showing you is to take you through the process on one model, we've been showing you the CADs and the EP samples and the components from the MMA JNA Ealnos wagons, the box wagons. And here are the decorated samples. There are various liveries that we're doing, and again, livery selection is something else that we talk about quite a lot. We've got the DB red ones, we've got the Mendip Rail VTG silver. We're also doing a plain silver version because those are running now. GBRF with or without the Amewa branding. VTG plain blue. Now these ones are particularly interesting because they're used for spot hire, which means these are the ones perhaps more than any, that you could see literally cropping up anywhere. Because they're big box wagons, they can just be unloaded in a siding with a digger, and there's lots of short-term flows that have been taking place with these. The tarmac mower ones run out of Mount Sorrel Quarry in the Midlands, and that's the place where we actually went to do one of our research trips. And then the new ones that we've got that have just come into service are the blue Kappa ones, and they run from a terminal in northwest London, don't they?
Yep, that's right next to the North Circular on the West Coast Main Line.
And then finally the burgundy coloured or red oxide coloured 2-axe ones, and again these run on the Mendip trains along with the VTG silver Mendip rail box wagons, and there's lots of photos on the internet showing those ones all running together. And we've looked at these decorated samples. They've been approved with just one minor change on the 2-axe, and then that leads us to a packaged model, which takes about 3 months usually, give or take, for production, although I have to say that over the last year production times have increased quite a lot for a variety of reasons. So 3 months is taking a bit longer at the moment, but that's roughly how long it should take normally. And then the products arrive, they're packaged up, and they're sent out to you. We'll do another video shortly, and in the next video we'll be talking you through some of our other products, and also we'll be talking through some of our new things that are coming, showing you all the samples we've got of those, and explaining again why they were selected, and also how you can go about getting your hands on them.